Good evening and welcome to the second episode of the Inside English Show. My name is Tallulah and tonight I'm so pleased to introduce to you all Manuel Kernen, fellow alumni and co-founder of the REACH Shirati project. Hello Manuel, how are you?
Hello. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to having you on our show today. It's the second episode, and we're all very keen to learn more about the impactful work you do in Tanzania and in the rest of the world. Why don't you give us a brief background about what you do and where you come from?
So I grew up actually in Switzerland, in Bern, and I spent some time in Geneva as well. And then I moved to the US and I did my undergraduate degree there in the United States. And then I went to Tanzania at the end of my undergrad time, for the first time. And then I went to LSE for my master's. And then I spent some more time doing educational work, and now I am here at Cambridge working on my PhD.
Yes, you have been very modest about your educational background, Manuel. I believe you have a bachelor degree from the University of Berkeley. And why don't you tell us more about the path that has led you to Shirati from Berkeley? Because I believe it was a very meaningful encounter you made there.
Yes, yeah, so but it's a bit when you meet people, sometimes you just happen to come across someone who shares a passion like you do. And at the end of my time at UC Berkeley, it was a gathering of faculty and alumni, and I happened to sit across Laura Mason, who was on the board or still is on the board of directors at REACH Shirati, and she invited me to come along to Shirati that summer after I was done with my undergraduate degree. And so I went, and one thing led to the next. We were working on a water catchment system, and the next time I went back to Shirati, I started with the project. So sometimes there's happy coincidences.
Yes, indeed. So Tanzania, what was it like? So how old were you when you first went to Tanzania?
The first time I went, so it was at the end of my undergrad, so that's 2009. So I was just about 22, 22. And it was a fantastic time. I mean, it was the first time that I went to the sub-Saharan Africa. It's definitely things that you haven't experienced before, and it definitely has helped me having that experience the first time around, and then building connections, because I think that's one of the most important aspects to be able to build connections with local people from the community to be able to have a project like the one that we have now.
Yes, I agree. And before we do talk more about Reach Shirati and the project that you actually founded at a primary school in Shirati, why don't you tell us more about your journey at the LSE? What was your major in? And yeah, how you developed from there.
So LSC was a really good time. I was doing my major. It was a Master of Science in Global Politics, and it was really nice because it allowed me to take classes from different departments. So I took classes from the government and from international development and also international relations. And I would say the classes that I really became fond of were the classes from the international development, particularly complex emergencies from Professor Keane, and managing humanitarianism from Professor Tim Allen. So they introduced me to some critical thinking about the humanitarian interventions and assistance and so forth. So I think that has helped me moving forward, and now founding this the Gender Respect Project. So it's been really, I would say, quite impactful.
I can imagine Tim Allen was a fantastic professor, and as a alumna from the international development department myself, I can totally relate to the impact that we all received. And yeah, so Beautiful. So personally, I have done my bachelor research in Tanzania, and being a woman of color, but growing up in Switzerland, I found it challenging to do research in a place like Tanzania. How how has the experience been for you as a, I don't know if that's politically correct, but as a white man, how has your experience been so
I
far?
think it involves having reflexivity. And what I mean by that is to be aware in many ways of your surroundings, who you represent when you are there. And, the fact that I was there in 2009, it helped me build connections with people locally, whether that is the medical director at the hospital, Dr. Chirangi, whether that is the headmistress of the school, Tina's primary school, where the project is taking place. So it's really being a white man. I mean, you're aware of it when you arrive because you're the one of the few white people that is there, so that you recognize. But it's the little it's everything that you represent, and Tanzania being having a colonial past as well, and you speak English primarily. The way people look and see you, I think the most important aspect is to make it a community-based project in which I am one listening to the local people who have grown up there and who know the population, and then working together, collaborating. So I think in terms of my so-called positionality, I think it's critical to be able to be respectful and to be able to make sure that whatever I do, whatever the project does, it helps the community. It helps the community move forward and to have children that are educated and learn about these vital health issues that the project discusses.
Mhm. Yeah, I think positionality, as you mentioned, is definitely a key aspect in any development project one does in a developing country. Why don't you, before we speak about the implications of your personal positionality in the field on the field, why don't you tell us more about Tina's primary school, where your project is taking place, and how old are your children? What does your project entail?
So Tina's primary school is so Shirati. You got to think of Shirati a little bit like a village community in rural Tanzania in the northwestern part. If you are familiar with Tanzania, then you will know that part of Tanzania borders the Lake Victoria, and it's in this northwest corner near the Kenyan border. And Tina's school is in Nyamagongo, and there are about 500 students currently enrolled at Tina's, and they are from PP1 all the way to class 7. So you have PP1, PP2, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Um, and the Gender Respect Project focuses on class 5 and 6, and for next year, we now have planned to also include class 7. And it is about 100 to 120 students at the moment, and we focus on gender-based violence and sexual and reproductive health and rights. And so the students, some of them are as young as 11, and some are as old as 15.
Thank you, Manuel. So, when you say sexual reproductive rights and health implications that those rights entail, how challenging would you say is it in a place like Tanzania where the majority are Christians or Muslims, and without trying to bring religion into this equation, I'm just trying to understand how you reach the community as a Westerner, because these are our rights. These are rights that we've established here in the West. And how do you approach farmers, rural people who have never heard of those rights before?
So I think what we do is we have community events, and like I said, it's so much. I will not be able to do this without the support of the local community. So in so many ways, they would be great that they could be able to share some of their thoughts as well. But I will try to do my best to give them as much of a voice as possible. And so, yeah, so we talk with the parents, we get the consent from parents so that the students are allowed to participate in the program. And then we have events where the parents can come to the school, they can talk to us, share their thoughts, questions, and then we try to answer them to the best of our abilities. And I say we because it's not about I, it's about we as a community, as a school, to really do this. So sometimes it's a challenge a little bit, of course, like with anything that you do. You have, why are they staying? Why are they staying longer? And then we say we provide food also, and then we provide them with information that can help their children, perform better in school, and also maybe stay a little bit longer in school, because there's some issues. For instance, one aspect is menstrual hygiene, and girls who have trouble with their menstruation and their menstrual hygiene can really diminish the amount of time they can spend at school, because they might be distracted, or they might not have the knowledge, or they don't even know what is happening. And so we try to explain that, to parents, and it's a very sensitive issue. And so I try to really listen to the approach that the teachers and the headmistress and the doctor, like I said, are providing me with. It's not me going into a place and telling them. It's me listening and then talking with parents and try to understand to the best of my abilities with the teachers how to show that this is a good program, how they can benefit, right? One extra year, for example, for a child to sometimes be in a primary school can really help them also learn more about their own health, which then overall has a big impact for their community and for their family and for the farmers. If the children are healthier, they can help better also at home. So different ways to discuss it.
Definitely. I think one thing one always needs to remember is that rural development differentiates from urban development in the sense that most of the people living in the rural areas are farmers, right? So how do you motivate parents to send their children to school if they think they will only, stay farmers? And I say only in in a context of the situation where those people live. And
Well,
another question. Yeah, sorry, please
go,
go
go
on.
ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. I insist.
I was gonna say, like with the farmers, for instance, I want to point out that the school is doing excellent work. So it's about integrity, and if there's a program from the school, and the school has a good reputation among the parents, among the community, then that already makes it easier, right? So, for example, just this year, the school finished first again in the final in the exam. So they were number one in the Roria district, okay, amongst hundreds of schools. So when you have a school like that already, then having a program, it makes it easier. And like I said, right, it's about teamwork, it's about collaboration, it's about understanding. It's really working as a unit, So for the farmers and for the people of the region and the surrounding areas, it makes it a little bit easier that they basically trust us to have a program that will be good for their children.
I understand. So, just for our viewers out there who have never seen a classroom in a place like Tanzania, why don't you paint us a picture of how we should imagine a classroom at Tina's primary school? How many students are in a room, and is it more boys? Is it more girls? How paint us a picture, please.
Okay, so if you close your eyes and you just see yourself, you close your eyes and you see yourself, and you walk into that room, and then you open up your eyes, and you have probably, 3 rows, and then probably tables of where three students are sitting, and then you think about 3 students per table, and there's maybe 10 rows. So there's anywhere between 40 to up to sometimes 70 plus students. Sometimes it really depends. Sometimes on the day, and for the gender respect project, for example, we we've had to adjust a little bit with COVID-19, so that's something we can maybe discuss a bit later. But there's anywhere like about 60 students, and the classrooms, you have place in the front where you can write on the board with Cray. Okay, so if you're used to teaching, if there's some people watching who are teachers, being used to be with all the technology that you have, let's say in Switzerland or London or other places, then a classroom like this is quite a bit different. There's the windows. There's not really windows. There's the wind blows through sometimes, so some nice ventilation. Actually, you're never too hot, so that is nice. And like I said, it's just filled with children and willing to learn. I think the appreciation for education is something that's really that I cannot overstate. Some students walk up to an hour and a half just one way to go to school. So you're in front of those children, you have like 50, 60, 70 eyes on you, and they're all listening attentively to everything that you do. So it's no, it's wonderful. I love it.
Sounds like a very enriching experience that you are offering to those children and must be very enriching to yourself as well. Um, so just help me to understand this school, Tina School. Is it free for all? Is it a private school? Tanzania is often a case where, unfortunately, as in many emerging markets and developing countries, there is no universal education, no free education for all. How does it work in Shirati?
So in Shirati, you have government schools, and they are free.
Yeah.
Now, REACH Shirati is an NGO that runs, and that school was actually founded by a local individual who is from the village, and she went to the United States and she started REACH Shirati. Sadly, she passed away a few years ago, but so the school has a small fee per month. It's about between $3 and $4 a month, give or take. Okay. So there is a small fee involved with the monthly fee, but there's a lot of school students there who are on scholarships where people are providing the school fees for them, and compared to other private schools, it's not as expensive.
Mhm.
And you get quality education, and they get food served to them as well. And through the Gender Respect Project, actually, they also receive food, rice and beans. Sometimes they get a bit of soda and they get a bit of the mandazis. So it depends. But it's no, it is a little bit. It is there's a certain fee involved. But like I said, it's difficult because we operate. REACH Shirati is a fairly small NGO, and so it's some costs that are associated with that. And then the teachers are doing a wonderful job based on the results that we are getting with the exams. So that's how it is in Shirati.
Beautiful. So I understand that you're flying out to Tanzania basically after this interview.
Yes. So after
How,
this, yeah.
yeah, after, yes, after this interview. So how has it been for you, like just not being there physically, leading this project and working on this project while at the same time doing a PhD?
So like I said, it's one of those things where I think you really got to be able to have someone there, individuals, people who are committed, to make sure that the children have the best education possible. And so for me, it's always nice to know that, there's people there who know the children. And I mean, honestly, better than me at the end of the day, because I cannot say that I know children better if I'm not from there and I don't live there. I go there as much as I can. Um, Code has not helped these things. Um, but there's a headmistress who does a wonderful job. There's a manager, Fred Chacha, who does a wonderful job. Like, Madame Anna, the headmistress, fantastic job with the school. And then there's teachers, teachers who help with the class, who are well educated and who have the ability to do this. Then there is the medical director, Dr. Chirangi. Then there's some of the nurses there who are helping as well, who have guest lectures with the students. And so those are really the drivers of the project on the ground on a day-to-day basis. And so it really comes down to being able to work as a team through WhatsApp sometimes. Sometimes the connectivity with the lack of internet can be a little bit challenging. So you just have to, rely. I mean, we've not always had the internet. So, it's just about being a bit creative sometimes and then trying to go as much as I can.
Beautiful. I hope Madam Anna and Dr. Chiranga and all the colleagues are watching, and I'm sure they're very pleased that that their work is appreciated. I feel that we often have that sadly negative, negative connotation to certain NGOs, or I would say just help organizations, in terms of where the fund go to. And there's a lot of critique around the development sector in many ways. So I feel that smaller NGOs as REACH Shirati could really have that impact. And if people see this, they can really, see the benefits it brings to children. How do you keep your donors informed about the project? Where can they find more information if they would like to get involved in the project?
So the way they can find more information, so there's multiple questions involved. So I'll go the basic information you find is with the website. It's REACH Shirati. You can type it in. As you see on the screen, it's right there. To find more information too, it's REACH Shirati, so .org. And then if you want to go specifically for the respect project, then you just go dash gender respect project. And I can provide all that information. Also, if someone would like to contact me, at the end of the show, I can leave some information and so forth, also how to support us. But more importantly, in terms of the transparency, there's a big organization called Transparency International, and there's also, going back to my time at LSE, there's a class managing humanitarianism, and it was about Alex de Wol was one of the readings that we did, and he has a book called Famine Crimes, and in it he also alludes to Life Aid, for instance, in the 80s, where a lot of the money that was made actually did not end up in the communities that needed the money the most. So a lot of money got lost along the way. And so what I want to make sure of is that if anyone asks me at any point where the money goes, I have everything written line by line, and I can tell them exactly the items that are being used. I can give them the exact price per month that are being used for each component of the project, whether that is class materials, whether it is teacher salaries for teaching the gender project on top of the regular workload, whether that is food, whether that is guest speakers, anything. So I make sure that if anyone asks me, I'm able to provide that information. And also REACH sends out newsletters, sends out updates, and I always make sure I keep my donors informed about anything. I take pictures, making sure that they feel that there's a commitment and there's a connection between what they do and what they're able to get. So it's very important. I cannot understate this enough, the transparency factor and the ability to say, here is what I'm spending, here is what I need, and if there's anything left over, here it's where it's going to go. There's always more, to use. There's not a lack of needs, so there's always a lot there as well.
Thank you. One can tell how vested you are in this project, and I salute you for this purposeful work, really. So, Manuel, in terms of, your PhD studies are very closely linked to this project. If you can just tell us more about your current research and where you see, yourself in the next 2-3 years. Yeah.
So I started this year, so it's still in progress. And so in terms of the research, it's not happening quite yet. There's a lot of clearances that one must get in order to actually conduct the fieldwork for the PhD. And that happens at the end of this first year. So right now I'm just working on the literature review. I've just finished that. I'm going to work on the research design itself in the coming month. But in terms of the project itself, it's really drawing on the voices of the youth in the program, both my own, and there's another one that I'm looking into that is also in Shirati called by Maji Safi. They have a female hygiene program as well, and it's basically to get a sense of the students' experiences and then have a sense of the effect that the program, the projects are having in terms of their knowledge and how the impact has been for their well-being. So you're really talking about a focus on health and education. And then you have a little bit of a concept, overarching element of, the rights and empowerment that's involved, both for girls and also a transformative piece for the boys. Okay. So that's really the main aspect. It's health, education, and community led, and getting a sense for the effectiveness, because there's actually really an under researched that the focus is really menstrual hygiene management, which is a very under researched topic in many aspects. It's only been recently that by someone called Marnie Sommer, who really was the first one to really look at that issue and see the impact it has for girls in developing countries, or the developed countries nowadays can be looked at in a critical manner. So I would just say in communities, rural communities where girls may not have access to information, and there's not as much familiarity with those type of issues. So that is the focus: menstrual hygiene management, and the way in which projects like my own have an impact. Yeah, so it's very much centered on the youth and their experiences in those programs.
Okay. So your work at Cambridge, at your PhD in international education, then mainly focuses on gender and, the hygiene and it's part of the SDGs, basically, those underlying implications of the development goals, right?
Yes.
Is
So
that where
it's
you see yourself, towards, is that what you will be working on throughout your PhD?
yeah. So I think throughout my PhD, I mean, I have 3 years more or less to do the PhD,
Yes,
and so
depending on
right,
COVID.
depending on COVID, yes. So I'm hoping that there's a lot of clearances, like I mentioned, to be able to do this. It's very sensitive, so you want to make sure that the research is very much ethical, and
Mhm,
there's a positionality, like we talked about earlier, that has to be very clear.
mhm,
And so those are going to have to be like discussed in great detail by the end of this year. But definitely, if I can do work with the World Health Organization or the UN, UNESCO, those type of organizations. There's also a big organization here in Cambridge called CAMFED, and they're also working with women's rights, women's health, and so on, gender issues. And so yes, anything at the intersection of gender, health, and education is probably the area that I'll focus on the most.
mhm.
And of course, I want to maintain the gender respect project, and what comes out of that, I one step at a time, but always thinking a little bit of the future. You got to be able to think ahead. And so yeah, hopefully in 3 years, either I stay in academia and I do research within Tanzania, or I work for, like I mentioned, some of those bigger institutions.
Thank you. So, Manuel, to wrap this up, I just have a few questions. About a year ago, the LSC Alumni Association hosted, together with HSG and ETH, it was a development career fair that was, yeah, about a year ago. And for young graduates and people just straight out of university who are looking to get into the developmental sector, what advice do you have for our fellow alumni?
I think it takes hard work. I mean, that's okay. Well, this is going to be this is a little bit overused, so I'm going to be a bit more specific, perhaps. Just try. I think instead of talking about it, do something about it, I would say. And for that, it might take, a lot of work on your own without a ton of money involved, because it is difficult to break into the international development world sector. And so it's much easier when you kind of show some initiative that you have taken in the past, show that you can work with communities that, you know, it's not about you, but it's about the people that you are working with. And I'm using these terms specifically, like with and we, not me and I, and, it's the approach I think that matters a lot. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think it's very much important. So if there's you know, go back to school if you're interested in pursuing a career in research, academia. I think it's very much important to stay motivated, and when you have some setbacks, because I've definitely had those as well, where you can be frustrating when you cannot find um, jobs that give you a whole lot of resources. You got to kind of be creative and maybe have another job. I've had three jobs at times, like to be able to do this. So it's you got to be creative, I think, and ultimately it works itself out because you end up meeting. And don't be afraid to put yourself out there. The worst that you can do is try and not make it, but then out of not making it, you learn something from that, right? And so I think even if you don't make it the first time, you try again and you try again and you learn from what you've done. And I think at the end, if you think about all the difficulties that children face, in my case, then there's never enough work that can be done, and therefore you can keep on going regardless of the challenges. So if there's one message, is do something, apply what you learn in the books and apply it in a practical way or in a theoretical way to move forward the needle that needs very much a lot of work still.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Um, I I think we can all agree that we look forward to seeing and hearing more about REACH Shirati. And if anyone wants to reach Shirati, get in contact
Yes.
with Manuel Kernen.
Yes.
At this stage, I let you finish pack your bags, and I wish you the best of luck on your continuing journey. Power through, even with COVID. We all will. And
Yes.
yes, thank you very much for speaking to us all. And to wrap it all up, asika mwema, I think they say in Tanzania. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Yes. Asante sana. And thank you for LSE alumni in Switzerland, and to anyone who watched today. Thank you for tuning in. And yes, if you want to reach me, please contact me. You can contact me on the Swiss email that I have. It's at manuel.kernen@neuart.ch. Neuart is NEUART.ch. So I'm very happy to send you any more information, anything that you'd like, I can provide you. So thank you very much. Asante sana.
Asante
Have a
sana to
wonderful
you.
evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Good night.